morning. Welcome back to our mornings on Friday. I'm delighted to be joined today by Miss Felicity Corbin-Wheeler. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Si. And I've got such an interesting show today because it's on digestion.
Wow.
I've had so many emails from people who have digestion problems, and so I thought we'd really crack it today, and we've got a really good couple of clips. Yes.
Fantastic. So we've got a full packed, I believe, half an hour to fill in. So if I could get you to send your emails and text messages. The details are on screen for any questions that you might have for Felicity, and we'll try and cover everything as soon as we can. All right. So let's start off, Felicity. Digestion.
Right. So if people have got bloating, IBS, Crohn's, celiac, colitis, all these things are warning signals, really, that there is something very wrong with the way we're eating. And as soon as people get back onto the Genesis diet, the alkaline, rather the raw food rather than cooked, so alkaline rather than acid, in fact these things clear up. And of course I've been trained at Hippocrates Health Institute and also at Hallelujah Acres. Right. We do a lot of wheatgrass, barley grass, and this soothes the system again. So this
is obviously something that you've studied in depth about. What were your findings from the research that you carried out?
Well, we found that when people went on a diet for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks or 4 weeks is ideal, they do completely heal their digestive system, even from the really serious things like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. It's always possible. You know, God has designed our body in such an amazing way that it will heal again, given a chance. But while we're continually putting genetically modified foods or processed foods, chemicals into the body, of course we're damaging it daily. And so we just have to completely go on a radical change. Wow. And when we understand the working of the digestion system, then you really want to do it. So I would think we could move on to the clip of Dr. Clement, who is the director of Hippocrates Health Institute in America, which is where I train. And Brian has got a wonderful clip on this.
Okay. Colleagues in mainstream medicine, unfortunately, have a mantra that is completely wrong. They better go back and learn at the choir how to sing properly. They tell all the poor victims of gastrointestinal problems, diverticulosis, diverticulitis, Crohn's disease, colitis, do not eat raw food. Well, I can't tell you the number of people who have eaten raw food in a properly prepared way that have reversed these disorders. I don't know anyone who has the ability to stick to this and follow through and endure all of that nonsense out there in the media and in healthcare that doesn't have the ability to reverse these disorders. Now, you may not go to the same table that I am and chew the same roughage food. At first, we may have to juice it. We use specific types of supplementation. We target certain kinds of food, and even though blending kills much of the nutrition, we blend food and we remove the roughage in very severe cases. You avoid all small seeds. Why? If you have pockets of infection, you don't want to put a seed in there, organic or not, because that could create further inflammation. But this is something we've worked with for 6 decades, and we can assure you, if you have the courage to do what it takes, and you come here to Hippocrates, we'll help you reverse these disorders. Don't listen to the naysayers who tell you that you need medicine for the rest of your life, or that you need part of your colon removed, and that's the first choice. There are those horrible circumstances where that's required, but that's the last choice, not the first choice. We also know that people can reverse all of these concerns in almost every single circumstance. Thank goodness the world of healthcare is catching up with Hippocrates Health Institute. Our founder, Ann Wigmore, back in 1950s, had a mantra: if you alkalize the bloodstream, it helps to prevent all illness. She was right. Since then, many great researchers have done a lot of due diligence and shown us how true that is. Your body requires approximately 80% alkalinity and 20% acidity, which is in natural plant-based foods without you thinking about it or becoming a chemist. You don't have to worry about what you take or what you don't take. Eating right long enough is going to allow the body to come to a homeostasis, as we call it, a balance. where everything is exactly what we said. One of the concerns I have is some of the, quote, authorities today on alkalinity and acidity have fear tactics, I guess. They tell you that if you're acid, you're going to die. If your alkalinity is not exactly at 7, it's horrible. Well, these are not only untruths, but complete misunderstandings of alkalinity and acidity. About 30 years ago, I started to look at this in a very deep way and spent about 3 to 4 years of my life doing litmus paper and blood tests on probably about 20,000 people who had been going through a lifestyle change. I found that the average person took between 2 and 3.5 to 4 years to balance alkalinity and acidity to the normal levels. Why? Think about how you built your body before, with unfortunate things that you called food that should never have been consumed by you. Our bodies became quite acid. It doesn't take a day or a week or a quick change in diet or a supplement that's very expensive to change that. It takes consistency, day by day, proper lifestyle, proper hydration, proper movement and exercise. You will then find yourself hovering around 7, and if you have 6.5 all the time, guess what? After several years, that's what you require. And if you have a little too high acid, don't worry about it. When we're sick, what we do find, and we've tested God knows how many tens of thousands of people who are sick, we find that people are acid. But it's not our solo objective to just get you alkaline. You could still be very sick with my body if you were affected by nuclear radiation or emotional concerns. Don't think it's as easy as alkalinity and acidity, but it is a very big assistance to be alkaline eating a proper plant-based diet.
Hi, welcome back to our mornings. It's Friday afternoon. Hope you're having a good afternoon and nearly to the weekend. That's great. Basically, Felicity, now, Mr. Brian Cox was discussing about digestion. What would you say would be the main cause of digestion?
Right. It's Brian Clement.
Brian Clement, sorry.
The antibiotics that we've all been given have damaged our digestive system terribly badly. The vaccines as well don't help. Processed foods, the sugary foods, of course, as I've said before, sugar completely destroys the immune system for an hour. And so when we're constantly snacking on sugary things, you know, we're going to destroy the immune system over the years. The GM foods, which are now being used in the supermarkets without warning, the hydrolyzed fats and the oils, especially the corn oil. So these things seem quite innocuous, but in fact they are damaging the digestive system. And in a moment we're going to go on and have a look at a clip, which is really a medical school lecture, which is extremely interesting on how the body works, because a lot of people don't realize about that. So it might be an idea to move on to that, and then we can deal with other things afterwards.
Okay, let's go to this clip, and we'll just be back shortly.
Comes into the mouth. This is the oral cavity. So this structure right here is the oral cavity, this space. It's behind the teeth and above the tongue. The next structure is the tongue. Right, so the muscular tongue is here. And then in white, this is the hard palate. And back here with the muscle and the fat, this is the soft palate. You have the epiglottis, which is here. You have this whole entire space in the back that's the pharynx. Each section has a special name. Between this point and essentially the end of the soft palate is the nasopharynx. Behind the oral cavity is the oropharynx. Behind the entrance to the larynx is the laryngopharynx. Food passes through the pharynx. It's going to come down to the esophagus. It's going to enter through the cardiac region, through the cardiac sphincter, and into the body of the stomach, which is here. These wavy structures are called rugae. The portion of the stomach that is above, where you see my hand, this rounded region above the attachment of the esophagus, that's the fundus. This whole outer edge is called the greater curvature of the stomach. This inner is the lesser curvature. You come down, and this region of the stomach is the pyloric region. And right before food, chyme, moves into the duodenum, there's a pyloric sphincter right here. Then you have the duodenum, It's the first part of the small intestine. The pancreas coming across, which is going to add in pancreatic juices. I'm going to remove this section so you can see this a little bit better. The duodenum attaches to the jejunum, which is all this squiggly region in here. You get down to the very end of the small intestine, and this last little section is the ileum. So this section right here where it kind of comes straight up. This valve in between the ileum and the cecum is called the ileocecal valve, and it actually has number, I think, 15 on this model. The cecum is this rounded C-shaped region of the large intestine. The appendix, or the vermiform appendix, is here. The large intestine is also called the colon. And you have the ascending colon, so it's climbing, it's coming up. Transverse colon. You have the descending colon. And then when you get back in the back, there will form an S shape to the colon, and that's called the sigmoid colon. From there, we have the rectum, the anal sphincter, and the anus. And the other structures that we have on this model are the liver.
Right, so that gives you an idea of how our digestive system actually works. And most people haven't got a clue, Si, what goes on inside.
Very, very fascinating. I think from that video that we've just shown as well, people probably have a better idea how the whole thing works. How can we avoid digestive disease and things like that?
Well, the best thing to do is go back on the Genesis diet, which is what I'm trained in. And when people do that, they do get well. I mean, chlorinated water is another hidden danger that most people are totally unaware of. If they're on a public water supply, they are getting all kinds of chemicals in the water. And so that is damaging the body. And it's not just IBS. I mean, there's things like acne, fatigue. When your digestive system is not working, of course, the skin is one of the ways out for the toxins in the body. So psoriasis, eczema, or eczema as the Americans call it. There's all kinds of different things. And it also alters our behavioral patterns, the ADDH, with the children bouncing off the walls because they're having the fizzy drinks and the processed foods. So the digestive problems, they come out in many different ways that we don't realize. But of course, there's colon disease, bowel disease, that we all know about. Candidiasis is another huge one. I could do a whole program on candidiasis. That's caused by, it's a fungus that gets in the body and causes all kinds of problems, not only in the digestive system, also in the lungs, for instance.
Let me just take this opportunity to remind our viewers that the reason Felicity is so knowledgeable about this particular subject is because she had her own experiences, some sad experiences with the contamination of water and things like that. And for those reasons, unfortunately, you lost your husband, didn't you?
And my daughter.
And your daughter. Yes. And for those are the main reasons which really kicked you off to discover more about the health and the findings, and that's what led her to do all the research into all of this.
Yeah, I've been studying this 23 years now, and it's such a passion because it's wonderful when I get the emails from people, and the people I met in Israel, for instance, on the Revelation trip, who said, "You've no idea how you've helped," because I have been listening to the programs. And I had to go to America, I had to spend a lot of money to learn how to do all this. So my passion is to reach people through Revelation TV, and we're reaching 169 countries. It's amazing. So I think it's wonderful to be able to put the word out.
Yeah. Let me just also remind our viewers that each week Felicity has been doing a segment on our mornings on a Friday afternoon, going through various methods of the health situations, health subjects. And if you would like further information, please do log on to her website, which I believe the guys are going to be putting on screen. And you have all sorts of information that would advise you about everything, about most things, isn't it?
I try to cover most things because it's the immune system that I'm trained in. So the immune system has to encompass everything, whether it's ear, nose and throat, or whether it's the digestive system or breathing, whatever it is. It's our immune system that controls how well we are. So when we rebuild and restore the immune system, every disease gets well. It's not just one thing. The cancer, the diabetes, everything gets well at the same time, which is wonderful. It's God's way.
Now, let me ask you something. What's your opinion on antibiotics?
Well, in a serious situation, we're very grateful to have an antibiotic, but they've been handed out too much, and also patients have requested them too much, even for a cold. You know, you have to really build the immune system so you don't get sick in the first place, and go into the vitamins, go into the supplements, the vitamin C, the things that we now do need because the soil is deficient, our food is deficient. Even if we're eating, say, carrots and apples, which are really good, if they're grown in deficient soil, then they're not going to give us what they used to give our grandparents. This is why there's so much more disease now than there ever was in previous generations. And the sad thing is that we are outliving our children, which has happened to me, and that's a very scary place to be. Also, fertility has dropped tremendously. A third of young couples are now infertile, wow, which is incredible. And Pottinger, you know, Dr. Pottinger did an experiment on cats, feeding them the raw food and the cooked food, and after 3 generations, the cats on the cooked food actually couldn't reproduce and eventually died out. And that's what's happening to the human situation as well. So we really have to get back to God's diet. Genesis 1:29 and 30. So it's back to the fruits, the herbs, the seeds, the nuts.
The wheatgrass.
And the green plant. And I had my wheatgrass this morning and it was absolutely wonderful. I found a place here now in Spain where you can get frozen wheatgrass. They deliver it to you in a little thing like ice cubes. And you just press one out and away you go. It's
excellent.
It's great and it's good quality.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Now, you have antibiotics and then you have probiotics.
The probiotics are really important because we need to take a supplement of probiotics now. You can either do it orally or you can do it in the implants after the colonics. And the probiotics are very, very important in healing us. Even if you have a cold or flu, you'd think the probiotics nothing to do with it, but it is, because it's building the immune system, restoring the healthy gut flora.
Okay, and what relation to digestion, what would you say are the most common foods that cause digestion?
Indigestion.
Indigestion, sorry.
Well,
yes.
The acid foods,
yes,
certainly. The processed foods, the chemical foods. So when you go into the supermarket, really, you just want to go around the outside and pick up your fruit and vegetables. If they've got organic ones, that's fine. But, you know, I call it PHUD, food spelt that way, because it's chemical, it's nothing to do with the real thing. And unfortunately, a lot of people are eating that, and it costs more. So when we get back to onions and rice and apples and all the simple things, they are the least expensive. And of course, if you can grow them your own, you know, it's so much better. With my little boxes on my terrace, I'm going to be growing my own, which is wonderful. It's so interesting to see them all coming up, you know, and enjoying the real food,
yeah,
with the sun on it, and there's no chemicals. So it's great.
Fantastic. Now, I've heard of gut gut flora.
Yes.
Can you explain to our viewers what is gut flora, please?
Well, there's in the gut, which is this long colon that you've just seen described, yes, on by the medical research people there. It's really interesting that we have good and bad flora, and when we have a low immune system, our good gut flora disappears, and so this is when parasites and fungus and other things take over. Interestingly, when babies are born, the natural way, they get a collection of the probiotics from the mother as they pass through the birth canal. So children born with C-sections don't actually get that, but as the child moves through, they do get their first dose of the good gut flora from the mother. You know, God has designed us in so incredibly, it's amazing, isn't it? Wonderful.
Amazing. Now, can you please explain to us about gastrointestinal health?
Well, that's the whole gut right the way through,
exactly,
as you've just
yes,
seen.
Yeah.
And you have to really eat the right food. because our bodies are entirely dependent on what we put into the body to work properly.
Yes.
So that's the gastric area.
So you'd obviously avoid, to our viewers to say, to avoid things like that acid, anything that will make us acid. And
well, because life makes us acid, stress makes us acid, and wine and dairy and meat make us acid, and people need to go back to the alkaline. So the distiller for the water is really important. You know, the water that we're having is, as I said, chemical and tends to be slightly acid. There's been a lot of money made by people advertising water alkalizers, and in fact there is really no proven basis for that at all. I've talked with Dr. Clement, and also all the other places that I've trained. The only truly pure water is distilled water, and then you can alkalize it by putting a few grains of brown rice, the real brown rice, which if you leave that in the carafe for a few hours, that will actually bring it back to the right acidity and alkalinity levels.
wow.
The balance, which should be 7.2 to 7.4, and when we can get back on that balance, the pH balance, then the body will heal itself.
And now, if you were to advise our viewers on avoiding, obviously, indigestion as we're getting older, what would be the best way of preventing that? Look for the future, and maybe do things slowly, because we don't all jump in the deep end and all of a sudden go health and do everything straight away. What would be the practical examples that you can offer for our viewers?
Well, start with the wheatgrass, and if you can't grow it, you can buy it in a powdered form, because that really is the greatest alkalizer. That's the quickest and the cheapest way to do it. And then gradually change your diet to the good alkaline foods, and cut out the things that you know are bad, like dairy and meat. And for anyone who's suffering at the moment with IBS and these problems, the thing is to sleep a little bit higher up, maybe 2 pillows, and don't lay down after a meal wait about 3 hours before going to bed, because this acid reflux is very dangerous. When you have acid reflux coming back up, you know, it's called GERD, it's gastroesophageal reflux disease, and this eventually will cause cancer in the esophagus, which is a terrible disease, very serious. So if people are getting this acid reflux, they ought to really address it now, address it straight away. Don't allow that to happen.
And what is your opinion on, let's say, we see a lot of commercials on television with various yogurts and special drinks that we can take and things like that. What is your opinion on those?
Well, you see, yogurt is often recommended by the doctor when you take antibiotics, but in fact it's dairy. So you're better with a supplement. You can go to the chemist and you can get lactobacillus with bifidus in it. You've got to get those two together. There's lots of different brands out there. I don't sell anything in particular, although people are always asking me if I would. But I think they need something that's checked out. But go to the best health food shop you've got near you, or the chemist, and ask for acidophilus with bifidus. That's the big one.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to, first of all, apologise to our viewers that we were unable to read through your emails today. But I would like to remind viewers to please log on to Felicity's website. You'll find all the information that you need to find regarding all Felicity's research and her findings, and also her contact details. If you do need to send her an email, she'll be more than happy to help you and assist you.
Well, if people can come on the course, that would be wonderful, because then I can see them one-to-one.
Is that information on your website as well?
Yes, it's all on the website, and if they can't do that, they can't travel, then they can just download the e-course, and all the information is there. Fantastic.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much to our viewers for joining us today. I'd like to thank Miss Felicity Cordwin-Wheeler for also being with me today. We're going to go to an advert break, and Rochelle will be back with you. Thank you.